Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Talk Soccer to Me podcast, an American fan's perspective on everything that I want to talk about in the world of soccer. The show is hosted by yours truly, Jack All, and we're recording live from the great city of Baltimore, Maryland. We got a lot of soccer to talk about today. We've got Champions League from Matchday 6. We have Premier League from last weekend. So today is Thursday, December 18th. So it would have been the games on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I know there was some Europa League I want to talk about. One game from the Conference League, a little bit of Bundesliga, and a little bit of La Liga. Those are the German and Spanish leagues. Yeah, so I'm really excited to jump into that. It was a really entertaining week. Just a little caveat here. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I just want to express what the show's about and kind of what my vision is, because I'm really trying to mass market this right now. It really comes from what I'm looking for as a soccer fan, and whether it's coverage domestically or abroad in Europe. And I just feel like a lot of soccer media to be consumed right now is a mess. There's hyper fixations on hypotheticals. You'll see a YouTube video, they'll just argue best 11 in the Premier League right now. And it's all right, beginning of the season, end of the season, yeah. But it's weekly, seeing a new video about that weekly. Those debates just go on and on. And another thing is I feel there's this glorification of the past. When we talk about teams now, people bring up players from the 2000s and the 90s, old national teams. And it's just nostalgia, and putting former teams and players on this pedestal that nobody in the modern game shall ever compare to. And last, and certainly least, is just this world of shocking hot takes. Sometimes it feels like every clip you see has to be this grand, ridiculous hot take that they're just trying to generate traction and views and clicks. And it's so disingenuous to the game. And sometimes it will come from reputable soccer media sources. Now, that's not to say everything out there is bad. There's content I consume that I really love. But it's, it's me really fulfilling what I was looking for in a show. And that's just kind of weekly, talk about the most recent games, what's happening right now in the world of soccer, and having a level of nuance and level-headedness to it, and try to avoid the shocking hot takes. Now, I will, follow that up with saying, I do have opinions. I'm human, but I really don't want to say anything that's unnecessary just to get clicks. If Man City don't play well, or Chelsea do play well, and I'm really impressed with someone, or just really not feeling the performance that someone put in, then that's just what happened. That's my opinion. I wouldn't call that a grand hot take compared to, I don't know. There's people out there, I don't want to call anyone out, because who am I? And, I don't know. But yeah, that's my goal. I'm really introducing the podcast to a lot of people, so hopefully one day I won't have to give this little little heads up. But yeah, the goal is we got 21 games to talk about today. I'm going to introduce the game, talk about the game, and then have a reaction to the game. And we're actually going to start first in the Champions League. But before we start, I just want to give a shout out to the social medias. If you like what you hear today and you discover the podcast somehow, some way, it's Talk Soccer to Me on TikTok, and it's the Talk Soccer to Me podcast on Instagram. We also post on the YouTube, and we have a Discord as well. There should be a link in the bio of wherever you're listening to, or however you found this. Most likely you're listening to Spotify, Amazon Podcast, or Apple Podcasts. That's where we're streaming. If you like it, leave a like, leave 5 stars, rate it, review it. However you want to do it, any traction, anything is great and appreciated. So thank you. But yeah, 21 games to talk about. Should be a little over an hour, so let's jump right into it. The first Tuesday Champions League match that is going to be getting my love and attention is Chelsea heading to the north of Italy to face Atalanta. These teams were coming into this game with identical records of the Champions League, both sitting at 3 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. A win would be huge, as both teams are pushing to get that top 8 spot. And I'm going to be mentioning top 8 a lot. In the Champions League, there are 36 teams. The top 8 get a bye, and the top 24 make the knockout rounds. So you want to finish in the top 8. Anytime you can play 2 less games and advance yourself another round in no competition, it's always good. But we'll get to the game. Ademola Lookman starting up front for Atalanta. Love to see that. He's definitely had his ups and downs with the most recent manager. So new manager brought in. Hopefully they can, gel something up because he's just been a treat to watch in the last few years. Reece James playing in the midfield for Chelsea. I think it's a team that's still desperately missing Cole Palmer. And to get into the game, Atalanta provided us with the first chance in the game. There's some sharp passing on the left wing by a few Atalanta players in the 5th minute. Lookman tried to score from an incredibly tight angle. The shot was saved and the rebound fell into a dangerous area. It just was no Atalanta player around. Chelsea keeper Robert Sanchez made another fine save on Lookman a few minutes later, an opportunity that I for sure thought was going to get put away, but Sanchez was there, able to get a limb on it. And despite the few chances for Atalanta early, it would be, in fact, Chelsea who get the first goal. 25th minute, Chelsea win a corner. It's played short, and I'll be honest, I thought they were doing nothing with it. They just kind of stood on the ball, but Atalanta, they let him hold on to the ball. They just didn't really press out, and Enzo sends the ball down the flank to Reece James, whose cross met Joao Pedro at the front post. Pedro is a step ahead of his defenders and gets it past the Atalanta keeper. Originally offsides, but then VAR fixed that, correctly ruled it a goal. The rest of the first half was fairly uneventful. Chelsea got in the locker room with the lead. In the second half, Reece James had a decent chance from the top of the box with a wide open shot. Well, the goal wasn't wide open, but there was no one in front of him, and he put it wide. And then in the 55th minute, after some extended possession by Atalanta, attacking midfielder Charles de Ketelaere takes the ball down the right side, largely unchallenged by Jamie Gittins and Marc Cucurella. He sends in a floating cross, and Gianluca Scamacca is there to head it in the back of the net. Left unmarked in the box by Wesley Fofana. Nothing Robert Sanchez could do there. Atalanta had a little bit of a chance to double their lead 5 minutes later, but it was another scenario of a dangerous ball in the middle of the box, but just no Atalanta players there. And then in the 82nd minute, Atalanta, again with some possession, they play a quick free kick. Then Charles de Ketelaere in the same position on the right that he was in the first goal. He's got possession again. He's facing down Cucurella. He shoots, gets a bit of a beneficial deflection, and then the ball ends up in the back of the net. Chelsea would push on trying to draw or just get a goal, but it wouldn't be enough. Final on this one, Atalanta 2, Chelsea 1. So I genuinely got this game wrong. I thought going into it, Chelsea was going to win. I even made a snide remark with a friend that the Champions League is easier for English teams when Chelsea went up 1-0 in the first half. So now I have to eat my words. Chelsea was entirely too timid throughout the game. I have to look at their defensive decisions and shake my head at it. Atalanta's a good team with good players. They've got Ademola Lookman, Charles de Ketelaere, Mario Pasalic, but they're all threatening going forward, yes. But I think Chelsea need to remind themselves what badge is on the front of their shirt. Yeah, you can respect your opponents, but you're playing for Chelsea. Step up and defend. Marc Cucurella on both the goals, atrocious defending. Just giving de Ketelaere way too much time and respect on that right side. He was able to get off a cross that turned into an assist, and then a shot that turned into a goal with too much time and a lack of pressure. It was like deja vu watching that second goal. And I need to apologize to the boys from Bergamo. They were the better team on Tuesday. Not by much, but it was enough to win. Lookman was really unfortunate not to get his name on the score sheet as he was giving Chelsea fits early into the game. And their team kept their composure when going down a goal. They fought back. I thought goalkeeper Marco Carnesecchi was in fine form when he was required to make saves throughout the game. And with this win, Atalanta are actually up to 5th in the Champions League table after this, result. Chelsea are down to 13th. Not too far from the top 8, but not there either. Next up on Tuesday were the reigning Spanish champions and last year's Champions League semi-finalist Barcelona hosting Eintracht Frankfurt. Good tie between the two was what I was reminded of when I saw this on the match sheet. Europa League tie a few years back. Frankfurt won 4-3 in the spring of 2022. Though I will say these teams' respective fortunes have changed drastically since then. But if we get the game started off, Barcelona teased us early. Robert Lewandowski, who's back in the lineup, scored from a fine Rafinha cross. Though Rafinha was offsides in the build-up. And then in the 20th minute, Frankfurt left back Nathaniel Brown made a nice run through the middle of the field, sends Ansgar Knauf through on goal. He was able to muscle past Alejandro Balde and finish it nicely to give Frankfurt a 1-0 lead. Barcelona would hold the ball the rest of the first half, but it was all for nothing. Then the second half rolled around. Marcus Rashford sent in an absolute beauty of a cross from pretty far out on the left wing. Jules Koundé made a smart run, and he had the space to head it in the back of the net. 3 minutes later, some deja vu is what we got. Barcelona won a corner. The cross in from Yamal was a bit of a moonshot. It felt like it was in the air forever. Koundé somehow got an untested header to make it 2-1, and don't let the fact that it was untested take away from how impressive of a goal it was. Frankfurt would not have any other chances for the rest of the game. And that was it. Final in this one, Barcelona 2, Eintracht Frankfurt 1. Barcelona's second half really saved them for what I think would have been a midweek headache. The first half was kind of shaping up to be very similar to every game we've seen Barcelona fail to get points at this season. Extended possession with weak chances and then giving up a goal that you feel like they shouldn't have given up a goal by playing that high line that Hansi Flick just insists upon. But in the second half, the head of Jules Kounde meant we have to change the narrative. It doesn't change the fact that I think their high line is still incredibly risky and I don't know, not worth it. They've given up a lot of goals from it this season. Now, I don't want to be the guy who's only negative and only focusing on negatives after watching a team win, but I just feel as though this high line stresses Barcelona fans out every week. But they won. And that's all that matters. They got the point they needed. They're trying to chase the top 8 spot. They've got Lewandowski back in the lineup. That's an incredible positive. And it did feel like they were going to get the goals to win the game in the second half. They were just completely outclassing Frankfurt in the final 45 minutes. And this result moved them up to 15th, which is a little lower than you expect for them. And for Frankfurt, well, it's not looking good. They're sitting lowly down in 30th, well away out of the top 24. Keeping it rolling on Tuesday was Inter Milan hosting Liverpool. Frankly, I didn't know what to expect from this game. I mean, yeah, on paper, it should be like a heavyweight bout. These teams have won English titles in the last few years, Italian titles. They made 5 Champions League appearances between the two of them, Liverpool winning 1. I mean, yes, the lineups are very different, but I don't know. But these teams seem like a step behind where they've been in years past. Liverpool have had their struggles on and off the field. Inter Milan just not doing as well in Italy over the last 18 months as in previous years. But, I mean, that doesn't matter. These teams are both coming into the game. They do have relatively positive Champions League records, and they just are trying to finish in the top 8, so both trying to win. Looking at the lineups, both teams share the similarities of working in their 2 really good forwards, Marcus Thuram and Lautaro Martinez starting up front for Inter, and Arne Slot getting both Alex Isaac and Hugo Ekitike into the starting lineup for Liverpool. And it was a really slow start to the game. I mean, in the first half hour, Jan Sommer for Inter, the keeper, he may have had to make like 2 saves or so, but it was nothing really that required a lot of effort. Once it got past the half-hour mark, though, we had our first something of the game. Liverpool won a corner kick. The outswinger was sent in. Van Dijk headed it back to the goal, and it made it into the back of the net. However, this was not the opener. The ball hit the arm of Ekitike on the way to the goal, and VAR ruled it no goal. It took until the 5th minute of the first half extra time to write anything noteworthy regarding Inter, but a cross into the box was headed by Lautaro Martinez. It actually required a really athletic save from Alisson Becker, and that was it. The first half, it sits 0-0. Did the second half have any more excitement in the start? No. Connor Bradley had a one-on-one from a tight angle in the 80th minute. That finally piqued my interest. His shot was right at Sommer. He really didn't have a cross, so I don't blame him for shooting. And then in a few minutes later, we finally had something. Liverpool won a penalty as VAR viewed Alessandro Bastoni to have held Florian Wirtz's shirt and fouled him in the box. It was a bit of a 50-50 call, but it went Liverpool's way. Dominic Szoboszlai, the best player on that team this year, stepped up and he finished the penalty with a thumping finish to the right side, just outside of the reach of Sommer. Inter really couldn't produce much in terms of trying to find an equalizer. The final in this one was Inter Milan 0, Liverpool 1. Sometimes when we turn our TV on and we go to watch a game of soccer, not every single one is going to be exciting. Sometimes those games can be between quote-unquote elite teams. And they'll be slow and cagey, stout defensively, nobody really given any sort of opportunity for opposing teams to attack. It is what it is. Now, when you're playing in a game like that, I think teams just look for any 50-50 opportunity that can bounce your way. You know, take whatever points you can get and just run with it. And hell, if I was Liverpool, that's what I think after the game. I don't think Liverpool played bad, but I don't think they deserve to win. I don't think Inter Milan played bad, but I also don't think they deserve to win. Personally, I wasn't a fan of the VAR decision towards the end of the game. I do think there was some shirt pulling by Bastoni, but to call it a penalty, I can't agree with that. I mean that's not on Liverpool though. Like, I'm not gonna blame Liverpool, and I'm not even gonna say they got lucky. Like, you can only play with what you got, and the referee and the VAR crew, they determined it a penalty. And I think this game will be a sigh of relief for everyone around Liverpool. Slot saying in his post-game interview they appreciated the fans singing his name. And yeah, it's just one of those games where you will take whatever you can get. Milan will definitely be disappointed. Inter Milan will definitely be disappointed, as they were not able to produce anything at home. I was confident in them defensively, but going forward, they really just lack something. And with these results, Inter are currently sitting 6th in the Champions League table, 4 spots ahead of Liverpool. They have the same amount of points, but Inter's goal differential is what's pushing them ahead. But I did leave something out, and that's the whole Mo Salah situation. After not really receiving some playing time to, I think, his standard, Mo Salah did an interview last week, maybe 2 weeks ago by the time you're listening to this, and said he felt thrown under the bus by Arne Slot in Liverpool. I think it was to Norwegian media. He also made hints that it's his last game played for Liverpool. He received some criticism from the likes of Jamie Carragher and a few others from across the pond. Now, I'm not a Liverpool fan, though I have, as many others can say, immensely enjoyed watching Salah in the Premier League since he signed from Roma. And my take on the whole situation is it's just kind of sad. I mean, he's a Liverpool club legend. He's the best player I've ever seen play for Liverpool. Yes, I saw Luis Suarez, and I got the tail end of Steven Gerrard's career, but Mo Salah is my number one. Now, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, and I know Arne Slot and Mo Salah talked between the Champions League game and the Premier League game that we're going to talk about later in the episode, but I just can't wrap my head around Mo Salah going to the media without trying to figure out a solution within the ranks of the club. I mean, I could understand a player of his stature being frustrated by a benching. On the flip side, I understand the mantra that no one is bigger than the club. And I know I'm taking like a very neutral Swiss-like take on this, but it's really just bumming me out. I'm really hoping he'll come back from the African Cup of Nations. Everyone can get along. And if at the end of the year he does want to leave, well, then give him a proper send-off. I mean, when Jurgen Klopp came in, he was a marquee signing. He really helped turn this club around back to the Liverpool that I think, people's grandparents and parents grew up with. And yeah, that's what I got on this one. It's overall, as a fan of this game, just kind of sad. Not the drama I love. Moving on, Tuesday, next up, PSV Eindhoven from the Netherlands taking on Atletico Madrid at home. My biggest interest coming into this game was I was hoping to see some American national team players in action. Looking at the lineup, Serginho Dest was starting at right back for PSV, while Ricardo Pepi and Johnny Cardoso were on the benches for PSV and Atletico respectively. Eindhoven would get started out hot in this one, playing it out of the back successfully. Atletico's high line was punished as a through ball was sent on to Kuhaib Dreyush down on the left wing. He got past his defender, and then he was able to slide it across the face of the goal to be finished confidently by Goose Till. Early at home, PSV were up 1-0. Dreyush then had a chance less than 2 minutes later, but his shot in on goal completely missed the face of goal. So, a few seconds ago, like 10 seconds ago, I mentioned PSV's goal and how they did well playing it out of the back. Well, in the 37th minute, they would do the opposite. They would fail playing it out of the back. PSV goalkeeper Matej Kovar was feeling the pressure, sent a pass to his center back, Jurek Gasiorowski, who did not have much time. He took a poor first touch. Atletico dispossessed him. Alexander Sorloth has the ball in the box. He passes it across the face of goal to Julian Alvarez, who will not score an easier goal in his life, and he tapped it into a wide open net. The game would pick up a little bit heading into halftime, small few chances for both teams. The exciting play would translate to the start of the second half, though it would only be Atletico who benefits from it. In the 52nd minute, Atletico Madrid has a corner. It was cleared. Now, Huel Molina takes an ambitious shot from like 25 yards out. It requires a save from Kovar, but unfortunately for the Dutch team, the first man to the rebound was David Hanko, the Atletico center back, who'd never scored for the team. He looked more like an opportunistic striker, and his goal gave Atletico their lead back. 4 minutes later, Atletico increased their lead 2-1 with some wonderful attacking play. Julian Alvarez was he was in possession on the left. He kicked a wonderful ball to Pablo Barrios, who was unmarked, got behind the PSV high line, and then he put a cross on a platter for Alexander Sorloth to head in the goal. 3-1 Atletico. American Ricardo Pepi would come in on the 72nd minute for PSV, and the substitution would pay off, as in the 85th minute, PSV had a corner. It was flicked on by Ivan Perisic, great player, and Pepe was crashing at the back post to put it away. PSV should have tied it up in injury time, but substitute center back Armando Obispo missed a wide open goal. Wide open. Final on this one, PSV Eindhoven 2, Atletico Madrid 3. So yeah, this game was opposite of the Liverpool-Inter Milan game. There I talked about some games can be cagey. This is a scenario where some games are just fun, unexplainably fun. I mean, that's why you watch. And there wasn't some grand narrative coming in this game. I had no expectations. I mean, all I talked about coming in this one was wanting to watch American players. And unfortunately, Johnny Cardoso did not come off the bench for Atletico. But PSV, they ultimately fell victim to two aspects of the modern game. I guess they can define it by, live by the sword, die by the sword. They reaped the benefits of successfully playing it out of the back, but then you also saw what can happen when you don't play it out of the back correctly. They also showed a high line at times, but that came to bite them on Atletico's third goal. But coming in for PSV, I was happy to see my boy Ricardo Pepi score. He was in such great form before that knee injury. I just want to wrap him up in bubble wrap before the World Cup. I think he has potential to be absolutely important for the United States, whether that's starting in the lineup, or I think he has incredible potential as a super sub. His team, PSV, they're scrappy. They're top of the Dutch league. Definitely someone you do not want to face in the playoff round of knockouts. Flipping it back real quick, Atletico, I think this is 3 points they can be proud of. Not the greatest result, but a win is a win. And they're back in the top 8. They're sitting 8th after this result in the Champions League table, while PSV are down in 21st. So we did skip over some Tuesday games. We're going to run through that real quickly. Olympiacos traveled to Kazakhstan to face Kairat Almaty, defeated them 1-0 with a 73rd minute goal. Monaco did well at home. American Flo Balogun scoring in the 68th minute to defeat Galatasaray. Bayern Munich defeated Sporting Lisbon 3-1. I actually don't know why I didn't choose to talk about this game, but the 17-year-old Leonard Carl scored in the 69th minute. They were actually down 1-0 in the 54th minute, but they came back. And then Tottenham Hotspur did well, beat up on Slavia Prague 3-0 at home. And then the final game on Tuesday that I did not talk about was Marseille traveling to Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium and getting a 3-2 victory. The first game on Wednesday receiving our masterful in-depth coverage is Villarreal hosting Copenhagen. Villarreal are desperate to walk away with any sort of points, as their start in the Champions League campaign has been kind of atrocious. Villarreal's hope for something positive we put under threat right away is within the first 80 seconds, Copenhagen opened the scoring. It was just regular build-up. Copenhagen left back Marcos Lopez sent in a cross. It lands with Mohamed El Younousi, who was unmarked and able to put the cross in the back of the net. That was it, and that's how the first half ended, 1-0. The game picked up in the second half, though. Villarreal returned the favor. They struck at the start of the second half. Less than 70 seconds in, Villarreal's first real attack, it resulted in a goal. Elias Alcomac he sent in a cross. It was missed by Nicolas Pepe, but Santi Comasania was there. He fell on the ball, literally missed it. Like his ass just pushed it in the back of the net. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, go look it up yourself, Good times wouldn't last for Villarreal, though. Less than 2 minutes later, Copenhagen restored their lead. Right back Elias Achori finished a cross on the attack immediately following the restart. Villarreal would then tie it up in the 56th minute. A Trivela shot from Tani Oluwaseyi outside of the box from the outside of the foot. It wasn't the prettiest, but a goal is a goal. And then in the 90th minute, Copenhagen, the Dutch boys. No, Danish. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I said Dutch. Danish, the team from Copenhagen. Substitute, Andreas Cornelius. What a name. Was in the right place at the right time. He was making a run. There was a shot. It was deflected. It landed in his running path, and he had the composure to pounce on it and make it the game winner. The final in this one, Villarreal 2, FC Copenhagen 3. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this game is I cannot figure out what's going on with Villarreal in this Champions League campaign. Domestically in Spain, they're playing really well. They're only a few points behind the likes of Barcelona and Real Madrid. They've got 2 games in hand, and theoretically, if they won both of them, they would be ahead of Real Madrid and just right behind Barcelona. They've got the best defensive record in Spain so far this year, and they look good. But for some reason, they only have 1 point through their first 6 Champions League matches. And yes, some of their games, I can live with the result. They lost at home to Manchester City. They traveled to Dortmund and lost. But in the last month, they've now lost to Copenhagen at home and traveled to Cyprus to lose to Paphos 1-0. They're second to last in the table. They're 6 points away from the top 24. They've got Ajax and Bayer Leverkusen waiting for them in January. I don't think it's ridiculous for me to say their European season is probably over. I can't understand how one team could be doing so well domestically and then just be struggling like this in Europe. Copenhagen, though, with this win, they moved to 24th. Shout out to them. They played really well on Wednesday. Maybe I should be talking about Copenhagen pushing for a top 24 spot instead of what the hell is going on with Villarreal. Next up on Wednesday was one of the matchups that I was quite excited about. Bayer Leverkusen hosting Newcastle. These are 2 teams that I put into the second tier of contenders in this 36-team league. And, hear me out. Listen to me. It's not a diss, whatsoever. Both these teams just, I think, lack something to where I would never really view them as a chance to be champions. I wouldn't put them on the level of Real Madrid, PSG, Barcelona, Arsenal, Man City, Bayern Munich, teams that I think can actually win this competition. But they have talent. These teams are good, and they could make a run, upset some people. Well, I don't think the first round would be upset, but, if they got to the quarterfinals or whatnot come March or April, they could definitely give someone fits. But let's get in the game. Bayer Leverkusen, Newcastle. First chance of the game came by a corner in the 13th minute. Bayer Leverkusen sent it in. Robert Andrich muscled off Sandro Tonali. His header was not directed towards goal, but back across goal. So this corner went into the back post. And then it hits the back of Bruno Guimaraes, who unfortunately redirected it in the back of the net to be an own goal. Leverkusen then thought they may have a penalty in an attempt to double their lead in the 20th minute, but some assistance to the referee from the powers above showed that the foul was actually outside of the box. The score was 1-0 Bayer Leverkusen going into halftime. It really was a slow first half. The second half, however, well, that was a different half. And then we really got some stuff to talk about. Newcastle came out. They were ready to play. I don't know what Eddie Howe said to those boys in the locker room, but 4 minutes into it, Bayer Leverkusen goalie Mark Flecken lost possession to Nick Voltemata, ended up fouling him. It's correctly called a penalty. The following penalty is put away confidently by the man rocking the headband, Anthony Gordon. The game's now tied. It really felt like the momentum was shifting back towards Newcastle. Gordon nearly got himself a Champions League double in the 62nd minute, but his attempt from the left wing rattled against the far post. 12 minutes later, in the 74th minute, Gordon would end up getting his name on the score sheet a second time. This time, however, it was an assist, not a goal. Gordon took on Arthur in the left wing. Arthur looked tired. Gordon did well to create some space, sent in a cross, and Newcastle youngster, I was reading youngster while I said Newcastle, Lewis Miley would score his first ever European goal for the club as he jumped over his defender to head it in. The youth academy products. Bayer Leverkusen would come back firing, though. A sequence in the 77th minute required 2 saves from Newcastle keeper Aaron Ramsdale. The first a diving effort, the second save a much easier occasion. Then Leverkusen keeper Mark Flecken would have to make nice saves himself. A quick reaction to parry a Malik Thiaw header away from goal. Jacob Murphy would then hit the post for Newcastle, and then Newcastle nearly gave away possession, producing another fine save from Ramsdale. No, Newcastle did give away possession. It did require a save from Ramsdale, and this game was just turned on its head late. I mean, it was such a slow first half, and then this just got so exciting. This drama, this game would only continue as in the 88th minute, Bayer Leverkusen would cut through the Newcastle defense. Alejandro Grimaldo would play a nice dummy in the middle of the field where then he would be set up with a nice pass in the box. I don't know if you can call that a 1-2, but the invincible man who would tie this game up. And wonderful shot, wonderful dummy, wonderful play from the midfield. I think once it got into injury time, both these teams were just tired, and that's how it finished. The final in this one, Bayer Leverkusen 2, Newcastle 2. Our next book will be A Tale of Two Halves, written by Newcastle and Bayer Leverkusen. That was a dumb joke, but seriously, the last 25 minutes of that half was super exciting. I mean, even the first half opening up was incredibly strong. It was just more like one-sided towards Newcastle in those early parts, but once this game was even and open, oh man, it was exciting. Newcastle, I think, is going to be very disappointed. They came back from being down a goal. They took the lead. They struck their post like 3 times while up 2-1. And despite all that, they couldn't walk away with the 3 points. I say it every week. If you're given opportunities to put teams away, good teams, you have to take it. They will find a way back in the game. And that's what Leverkusen did. I mean, Newcastle held out to the 88th minute, and honestly, a lot of that was due to Aaron Ramsdale really making some fine saves throughout this game. He was probably the biggest positive for Newcastle in this one. I mean, the other takeaways for them would probably be, the youngster, the Newcastle Academy product, Lewis Miley getting himself his first European goal. And I'm of the belief that if you're creating a lot of chances, eventually the law of averages will work out for you and they will start going into the back of the net. But this is a draw, and draws can be weird for both teams sometimes. I think Leverkusen are also going to have mixed feelings walking away from this result. They had a lead going into halftime. They came out so flat-footed in the second half. Though they weathered the storm, they took on the Newcastle onslaught, only gave up 2 goals, and when they got an opportunity, one of their good players, Grimaldo, put it away. After this result, Bayer Leverkusen are currently sitting 20th in the Champions League table, while Newcastle are 12th. So they very well could be seeing each other again if these standings hold true. We're just keeping going on Wednesday. Next game, Benfica hosting Napoli. Both teams have had a rather tough start to their Champions League campaigns, but they're both coming off wins in match week 5. And now it is time to see how Jose Mourinho's men would do against the reigning champions of Italy. Benfica would be the team who got us started off in this game in the 10th minute. A long ball was sent forward to the right wing. Friedrich Arsenis, he played a wonderful touch to set up striker Franjo Ivanovic with a one-on-one opportunity. The opportunity was ultimately squandered, and Ivanovic's shot was right at the Napoli keeper, Vanja Milinkovic-Savic. Real waste of a chance. Arsenis actually had a chance on the rebound, but he went wide of post as well. And then in the 17th minute, Benfica got another massive chance. Milinkovic-Savic misplaced his pass, attempting to pass it out of the back. Arsenis with a one-on-one, but he put it wide of goal. Two massive chances early on for Benfica. They just could not put it away. And would they ever score? Yeah, they would a few minutes later. They had some possession. They passed the ball around. Left back Samuel Dahl sent it across. It had airtime. Two players went up for it right in the edge of the 6-yard box. And the way it just hit those two players, it bounced towards the goal. And Benfica midfielder Richard Rios was the first one there. Put it in the back of the net. Benfica have the lead, 1-0. In the 28th minute, after a sequence of their own possession, Napoli finally get their first real chance of the game. A cross was sent in, and the captain, Giovanni Di Lorenzo, was the first man to the ball, but his header would sail wide at the net. It would stay a 1-goal advantage towards Benfica to halftime. Napoli would then make some halftime subs, trying to find any type of adjustments, and it didn't work out at first. Benfica sent a ball forward. Ivanovic takes it on the right, does well to maintain possession, holds it up, waits for runners to crash in. Ideal center forward play. Richard Rios was the man he found. He passed it across goal, looking for the run of Leandro Barreo. Barreo got the slightest touch. Really wasn't great, but it was enough to put it in the back of the net. And yeah, I mean, David Neres had a decent shot for Napoli. It was easily saved. There was a few corners for Napoli around the 70th minute mark. Didn't do anything. Napoli were just trying to find the second goal, but they exposed themselves to Benfica counters. And that was kind of just the way the rest of the game went. Napoli were not able to get back in this game or find the back of the net. The final in this one was Benfica 2, Napoli 0. In the managers who won a Premier League trophy with Chelsea derby, it was Jose Mourinho who triumphed over Antonio Conte. In all seriousness, that was a strong performance, Benfica. I know, heading to Lisbon can be one of the toughest places to play in Europe and really hard to get a point. But they had Napoli figured out, and it was kind of a classically Jose Mourinho managed game. I mean, how many times do you see a Mourinho team take a lead early, sit back, absorb pressure confidently, and then they try to strike you on a counter successfully? And that's how it went on Wednesday. And yeah, Napoli controlled the game. They had extended periods of possession in the second half, but Benfica were just tight defensively. They were dangerous on the counter. Both their goals came from long balls to someone in the front three. When they did get those long balls, they held up possession well. They passed together well. It felt like a vintage Mourinho team. And now, with the win, back-to-back wins, Jose's men can have some faith that something can come out of this Champions League season. You know, top 24 is within their sights. And then you got Napoli. It didn't feel like they could get their legs under themselves in this game. Sometimes you have games, you just can't get anything going. And I know, coming off of an Italian title, these teams are going to have certain expectations for themselves. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And it's actually even more disappointing because they're sitting right on the edge of qualification. And it's not an easy end of the year either. I mean, they have to travel to Copenhagen, who just looked really good against Villarreal, and they take on Chelsea at home, who may be pushing for a top 8 spot. With this result, Napoli are sitting 23rd in the table, while Benfica are two spots below them in 25th. We got two more games to talk about in depth. The first of the two is Borussia Dortmund hosting Bodo Glimt. Bodo Glimt from Norway have been a scrappy team this year. So the chance for a shocking result is high. Dortmund would open up the scoring in the 18th minute as we get this game started. A bouncing ball is unable to be cleared by Bodo Glimt's back line, and then it just gets sent right around the midfield. Fabio Silva pounced on the possession, led the counterattack, or maybe just breakaway is a better word. Passed it off to his left to Julian Brandt. Good pass, good timing. Brandt calmly finished it past the Bodo Glimt keeper. Before halftime, though, Bodo Glimt to win a corner. They played the corner short, a nice 1-2. Corner taker Patrick Berg sent it in the box where a sharply placed cross found the head of Haitem Al-Assami. A strong header from a player left, completely unmarked. The game was tied 1-1. Dortmund would retake the lead coming out of halftime. They were holding on to the ball, ended up with right wing back Jan Kutu. He sent the cross in. Midfielder Maximilian Bayer got his head on it. The header was saved by the Bodo Glimt keeper, but it landed right at Julian Brandt, who finished it to get his second goal of the night. Dortmund were not able to hold on to the lead. However, in the 75th minute, Bodo Glimt are pushing forward. It was a messy attack. It felt like every ball bounced Bodo Glimt's way, but when it landed to Jens Hauge, he tied the game up. Final in this one, Borussia Dortmund 2, Bodo Glimt 2. There's 36 teams in the Champions League phase, and everyone knows that not all 36 have a chance to win the competition. Some of these teams are going to be labeled as bottom feeders. Nobody's going to have any expectations. They won't be upset if they don't do well. Now, if you're a neutral and you're looking at one of these teams, the best case scenario is that you get to watch a team that's going to be scrappy, tough to play, and a pain in the ass. And that's exactly what Bodo Glimt has been in this season. Now, yeah, they won't finish in the top 24. I'm fairly confident in that. And when the 8th league phase game blows its final whistle, that will be the conclusion of their European season. But the boys from Norway have been a treat to watch. They've played several teams and just given them hell. They've now taken points off Dortmund and Tottenham. They've given Juventus and Monaco 90 minutes where those teams had to earn their victories. And they've just all around been one of the more entertaining teams in this year's competition. Yeah, Dortmund's going to be disappointed about their draw, whatever. I'm here to talk about Bodo Glimt and how much fun they've been watching in Europe this year. Honestly, they were fun to watch in Europe last year. A team from Norway making the semifinals of the Europa League is an accomplishment, and Tottenham did not get through that semifinal draw easily. But with the end of this game, Dortmund are currently sitting in 10th in the Champions League table, while Bodo Glimt are down in 32nd. The last game we're going to be talking about in depth was the marquee matchup of the lot. A fixture that has provided us with some of the best soccer in recent Champions Leagues. Real Madrid versus Manchester City. Two giants of the game. I mean, I wouldn't say they're at their best, but they're still great teams. Still great talent in this matchup. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Real Madrid coming into this game, and especially on their manager, Xabi Alonso. Looking at the lineups, Kylian Mbappe on the bench for Real Madrid because of injury. Erling Haaland starting up front for Manchester City, trying to keep his goal-scoring streak going. I don't even know if there's a goal-scoring streak, but it's Erling Haaland, so you just have to assume there is one. Game got started. Real Madrid believed they won a penalty early. Second minute, Vinny Jr. tripped by Mateus Nunes, but it was changed to have been from outside the box, which I believe was the correct call. 28th minute, Real Madrid had possession in a dangerous place. Bellingham finds Rodrigo, making a run down the right wing. Nico O'Reilly was just a little too far away from him. Rodrigo then breaks his goal-scoring drought with a shot that gets past Gianluigi Donnarumma and finds the far left corner. 6 minutes later, though, Nico O'Reilly would make up for his poor defending. Manchester City had a corner. Garvidal jumped over Bellingham. Courtois made the save on Garvidal's header, but it landed right at the feet of Nico O'Reilly, who was able to just tap it in the back of the net. Game is tied up again. Then in the 39th minute, a ball is sent in by Manchester City. Haaland was trying to make a run. Real Madrid defender Antonio Rudiger was all over him. It looked more like Olympic wrestling than it did defending in soccer. It was not called a penalty at first, but VAR took a look at it a few minutes later, realized he took him down, and it was a pretty quick decision by the referee. Erling Haaland stepped up to take the penalty, and well, Erling Haaland did what Erling Haaland does best. He scored. His penalty calmly finds the right side of the goal, opposite of the dive of Courtois, and in a span of 10 minutes, Manchester City have a lead in this game. City nearly made it 3 before halftime. Both Erling Haaland and Bernardo Silva had good shots on goal, but Courtois made 2 really good, strong saves. Madrid looked like they were going to get an equalizer right out of halftime, a quick counter, but Jude Bellingham's chip over Donnarumma sailed over the net. He had the goalkeeper beat, but he just didn't find that goal frame. City would then apply some pressure later in the second half. Good saves by Courtois kept them out. Vinny Jr. had a decent header in the 76th minute, but it sailed wide of net. He tried an acrobatic goal at the back post. It was a valiant effort, and any contact towards the goal would have scored, but it was just not Madrid's night. I do believe Endrick at one point, coming on as a substitute, had a header that rattled off the crossbar. But yeah, it wasn't meant to be for Los Blancos. Final in this one, Real Madrid 1, Manchester City 2. Well, that's certainly not going to alleviate any pressure on Xabi Alonso at Real Madrid. God, that's going to be the toughest position in the world. He hasn't even been sacked. And they've got articles on ESPN talking about who's going to be his replacement. Zidane, Klopp, whatever. I seriously wouldn't wish this job upon anyone. Alonso is clearly a good manager. His work with Bayer Leverkusen is some of the best stuff we've seen in the last few years. And this really does feel unfair because, I mean, look, there's a huge defensive crisis going on at Real Madrid. And would replacing him even make things any better? Whatever. There's a game to talk about. Manchester City, they won. They did enough to win. They took advantage of some dead ball situations. They played it to their advantage. When Madrid were looking and pushing for that second goal, they held strong. There were definitely some breaks that fell their way. And on the Real Madrid side of things, I think everyone can agree. It was good to see Rodrigo finally get his name on the score sheet after, 32, 33 games without scoring. It just feels like, if he was going to score against anyone, it was going to be Man City. He's got a lot of experience there. We're going to flip back to Man City. Nico O'Reilly did really well. I thought he was really poor defending on the first goal. So, he's young. You don't want to see his confidence destroyed. So getting that goal himself on the corner was really good. And then, of course, Haaland scored. I mean, is that even worth report? You just assume, I don't have to even watch Man City games. I just tell me the score and when did Haaland score. I can't say this is the most exciting big name matchup, but it was fun nonetheless. With this result, City are now sitting 4th in the Champions League table, while Real Madrid fell to 7th. All right, and what are the games we did not talk about in the Champions League on Wednesday? All right, Ajax traveled to Azerbaijan, Baku, to face Qarabag. Picked up a 4-2 victory, their first of the season so far. Athletic Bilbao held PSG to no goals in a 0-0 draw in Spain. Arsenal picked up a victory traveling to Club Brugge. 2 goals for Noni Madueke. And it's actually kind of a shame I didn't talk about this game in depth because 2 of the 3 goals by Arsenal were just absolute bangers. Madueke had himself a game. And the last one was Juventus kind of struggling, but they pulled it off. 2-0 victory over the Cypriot team Paphos. So that is it on Champions League coverage. I'm just going to pull up the table real quick. 2 games left. They're going to be coming in January. I don't believe teams have automatically qualified for the top 24. I think that's the likes of, anyone with above 12 points. So Atalanta, Man City, PSG, Bayern Munich, and Arsenal are definitely going to be in the at least playoff rounds. But to automatically qualify for the top 16, Arsenal is the closest. I think if they just got 1 point out of their last 2 games, Arsenal would automatically qualify. Bayern Munich would only need 4, and then everyone else would just be, I can't figure that out. That would just take some math we'll leave that for our future AI overlords. But we're going to move into Thursday. We're going to talk Europa League, talk Conference League. I think these, competitions still deserve our respect and mention. And the matchup, in my opinion, that was the biggest between anyone in the Europa League was Celtic hosting Roma. Specifically the fact that Celtic are on a really poor season, and I think they're just looking to make things right at whatever cost it takes. As the game started, Celtic's misery would not be relieved in the first few minutes. In the 6th minute, actually, a corner was sent in. Both Kieran Tierney and Liam Scales for Celtic tried their hardest to not let Gianluca Mancini get ahead on the ball, but in their attempts to stop him, Scales actually put it in the back of the net after the ball hit him in the face. Things would only get worse in the 34th minute. Roma had the ball, and with almost no pressure or resistance from Celtic, Mateus Sula carried the ball down the field, Zeki Selic sent in a cross, and the young Irishman Evan Ferguson finished it to make it 2-0. The team from the Italian capital would make it 3-0 before halftime. Sula sent in a ball to Evan Ferguson, who made a wonderful touch to maintain possession, hold on the ball. His shot then found the bottom right corner to make it 3-1. Celtic would then finally have a break where Arne Engels was fouled in the box right after Roma's 3rd goal, right before halftime, but Engels would step up himself to take the penalty. It would rattle off the post. Kind of a ball don't lie moment because, frankly, it was a pretty weak penalty. And then second half, pretty bland. There was a goal, I believe it was Kelechi Iheanacho. His goal for Celtic was called back. It was ultimately a night to forget. Final in this one from Glasgow, Celtic 0, Roma 3. Celtic 0, Roma 3. This was just one moment in 3. Those 3 moments made up what was a week from hell for Celtic. They lost an incredibly important league match to Hearts. Hearts currently sitting at the top of the table. They then were absolutely dominated in the Europa League by Roma, as just described. And to cap it all off, they lose a League Cup final 3-1 to St. Mirren. Really just a week to forget for the boys. I really feel bad for Wilfried Nancy, the manager who has had success in the MLS at the Columbus Crew. He just got brought in at the worst possible time. It's going to be hard for any new manager to come in the middle of the season and do anything for any team. But in a week this important, this guy had no chance. I'm really hoping for his sake that he can right the ship. It seems that that's the consensus coming out of Scotland, just to give him time. But man, maybe they should have held on to that interim manager just a little bit longer. In the Europa League table, Roma move up to 10th. Celtic, they're barely holding on, still qualifying for the playoffs, sitting in 24th. The other Europa League game I was looking forward to cover was Aston Villa versus Basel. I just want to keep my eyes on Villa. They're currently in really good form in the Premier League, and I'm just curious to see how they can keep up on two fronts. As the game started, Villa would look good. They would score from an early corner, though. Okay, maybe they look good, but maybe they got a lucky bounce or two. Corner was sent in. There was an opportunity for Basel to clear it. Their captain, Zerdan Shaqiri, remember him? Well, he kind of made a mess of it. The ball bounced the right way. It landed towards Evan Gessend, and he put it in the back of the net for Villa. Car horn. Basel then thought they got an equalizer in the 27th minute, but they were offsides in the build-up. They would actually get their equalizer a few minutes later. Shaqiri was fouled 35 yards out from goal. The ensuing free kick was sent into a really dangerous area, and Flavius Danelius, the Basel centre-back, beat the Villa keeper Marco Bizot to tie the game up. Shaqiri was actually the man who would get the assist on that goal. Villa would then start the second half even quicker than they did the first half. They got the ball. Halftime substitute Yuri Tielemans was given an opportunity to shoot from right outside the top of the box. He kept it low, curled it right into the bottom right corner. Basel really wouldn't threaten going forward for the rest of the game, and the final in this matchup would be Basel 1, Aston Villa 2. One of my favorite in-game tropes is when you have an older player back into the club of his youth. You know they aren't the player they used to be, but when you watch them, there's moments that shows you the class and the technique is still 100% there. And that was like watching Zerdan Shaqiri against Villa. You know, he may be in the twilight of his career, and he may have made a defensive mistake leading to the first goal, but that was a really nice assist. In all seriousness, though, it was Villa's night. It looked a little squirrely there for a minute in the first half when Basel were able to get an equalizer, but there really was a lack of concentrated threat by the Swiss opposition, and the second half really showed that this game was over the minute Villa retook the lead. Again, I'm really just curious to see going forward how well this team by Unai Emery is going to compete on two fronts. Yes, right now it's looking good. They're near the top of the Premier League. They're near the top of the Europa League table. But when it comes to the crunch time of March and April, how will they be competing? With the loss, Basel are down in 26th. Now heading over to the Conference League, a tournament that still deserves our love and affection. It's time to watch Crystal Palace travel all the way to Ireland to play a team that is currently in their off-season, Shelbourne. Getting the game started, Crystal Palace displayed the gap between these two teams pretty quickly. In the tie, Daichi Kamada found Eddie Nketiah, who then found Kristantis Uche, whose first time finish was enough to give Palace a 1-0 lead. Adam Wharton had a decent chance to double Palace's lead a few minutes later, but his shot from outside the box was over the bar. Palace would then double their lead in the 25th minute. Shelbourne cleared the ball, but Palace got it right back. Jeremy Pino set up Uche, who was trying to get his second goal of the night, but it got past the defender and struck the post. Eddie Nketiah, the center forward, was right there to snag the deflection and make it 2-0. American defender Chris Richards hit the bar in the 35th minute from a corner. Jeremy Pino would then make it 3-0 in the 37th minute. He got the ball at the start of the attacking third of the field, carried it to the top of the box with ultimately no pressure, and when the defender finally stepped towards him, he put it away accurately. It would be 3-0 going into halftime at the end of the 90. The final in this one, Shelbourne 0, Crystal Palace 3. I was never in doubt that Crystal Palace would go into Ireland and pick up the 3 points. I just was keeping an eye on them because their European performances, in my opinion, have been below the standard that I imagine that they're keeping for themselves this season. But with the win, Crystal Palace are now pushing the top 8 as they've moved to 9th with the win. The Conference League has its own thing going on probably by the time you listen to this. All games will be going on at the same time, so we'll see if Palace are able to break into the top 8. You know, this game was rough. I mean, you could just see the gulf of physicality and technique between the two teams and the Irish League players. Shelbourne fought hard, but these guys haven't even scored a goal yet in their Conference League campaign, and they're the 34th ranked team. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I picked the English team. I also realized I skipped over all the Europa League and Conference League games that I didn't touch. Like Real Betis defeated Dinamo Zagreb. This is the Europa League. Nottingham Forest got a 2-1 victory over Utrecht. Rangers lost again by Ferencváros out of Hungary. Young Boys beat Lille. Bologna defeated Celta Vigo. Porto beat Malmo. Lyon beat Go Ahead Eagles. And then the Conference League, Fiorentina beat Dynamo Kiev. Shakhtar Donetsk picked up a victory. They're sitting towards the top. But yeah, that was it. We're going to get back into the English League now, the weekend, the domestic games. I'm ready. I'm excited. Getting the Premier League back into the weekend games. The first game up will be Liverpool hosting Brighton. Liverpool coming into this game with some mixed league form, while Brighton have kind of been all over the place themselves. Looking at the lineups, Mo Salah was on the bench for Liverpool. Alex Isaac on the bench as well. Isak, excuse me. As the game started, Brighton sent the ball long. Liverpool cleared. I mean, this is right as the game start. Brighton then struggled to get it out of the back. A clear went across the field. Joe Gomez was pretty high up the field in the right back position for Liverpool. He heads the poor clearance to Hugo Ekitike. The Liverpool center forward scores with the first minute of the game. And yeah, the start, I think anyone could say Liverpool needed to calm this crowd down after such a busy week in the tabloids. In the 25th minute, when Joe Gomez went down with injury, Mo Salah would be the man sent on to replace him. Cheers and claps roared through the crowd. He nearly got an assist as soon as he came on, but the chance was squandered by Alexis McAllister. Liverpool's attack was quite lively after Salah came on, but none of their first half chances resulted in anything. The game would go into halftime with Liverpool still up 1. In the 50th minute, Brighton quickly moved possession past Liverpool. The right back, Mats Weifer, played a low ball across the face of goal that lined up perfectly for Brighton left winger Diego Gomez. It was a tough finish, but it is one you'd expect him to put away, but Gomez pushed it left of the post, missing an open goal. Brighton looked like they were going to get back into the game as they were the better team coming out of halftime, but then Liverpool won a corner after countering Brighton. Mo Salah sends in an in-swinging corner, and Hugo Ekitike was at the back post, 2 steps ahead of his defender to double the lead and double his goal tally with a fine header. A goal that is definitely going to give Liverpool some breathing room. Brighton would then spend the last few minutes with some chances, both Mitoma and Weifer having shots, but it resulted in nothing. And after nearly 10 minutes of added time, the final whistle was blown in this game. Final in this one, Liverpool 2, Brighton 0. That win will give Liverpool a sigh of relief, without a doubt. There's just been so much talk around this club with everything going on, and I know I talked about it a few minutes before, but I'm not going to get into it again. Well, maybe I will. You know, this win was just important to calm everyone's nerves, get 3 points here, and get this team back in a positive direction. And on the quote-unquote controversial subject, Mo Salah played well. I mean, came onto the game at an awkward time, 23rd minute. I really felt like Liverpool got a boost after he was subbed on. And then he got an assist. He was sending a nice corner for Ekitike to get ahead on it. And now it's going to be a little bit of a waiting game to see where this saga goes, because he leaves for the African Cup of Nations soon. By the time he gets back, it'll probably be in the middle of the January window, and then we'll see where his future lies with the football club. I'd like to see him stay at the end and get a proper send-off, but on the game, it was a good win for Liverpool. Brighton had their chances, especially coming out of the second half, where they were the far better team. I think if Gomez had put away that chance at the back post at the 50th minute, we may be talking about this game differently, but that's a hypothetical. I don't like to talk about hypotheticals. I want to talk about what happened, and that's a Brighton loss. With the win, Liverpool are now 7th in the league, while Brighton are sitting a little bit below them in 10th. Next up on Saturday was the top of the league taking on the bottom of the league as Wolves traveled to North London to take on Arsenal, a game both teams desperately needed to win for 2 very different reasons. William Saliba is back in the lineup for Arsenal. Gabi Jesus back on the bench. Arsenal started positively, a couple soccer crosses finding the heads of Timber and Rice respectively, though both those headers went to the left of the goal. Arsenal were nearly caught out in the 26th minute when they played a long throw. They had a lot of guys in the box. But then Hwang Hee-chan, he found himself with the ball. Zubamendi tried to chip. Ball ends up back with Hwang. There's nothing between him and the goal. He felt the pressure of the players chasing him down, but his one-on-one shot with David Raya, it found itself right at David Raya. It was a golden chance that was wasted for Wolves. Martinelli had a chance before and after a corner in the 37th minute. He got decent service from both Rice and Saka, but his finishing left a little bit to be desired. The game went to halftime 0-0. Arsenal came out at halftime again paying positively, but it just felt like there was such a disconnect with all their chances. More and more chances, several by Declan Rice, but they just could not find their breakthrough. But then they did. And what was their breakthrough from? Yeah, you guessed it. It was a set piece. Bukayo Saka stepped up to deliver an in-swinger from the corner to the right of the goal. This corner was from the right of the goal from their attacking perspective. I don't know how, what do you call each corner? Maybe whatever corner it is respective in the stadium, but whatever. He sends it a corner. Corner couldn't have been any more accurate. It was a looping corner, traveled past everyone, rattled off the far post, and then it struck Wolves goalkeeper Sam Johnson in the back, which directed it in the goal, which that's going to count, unfortunately, as an own goal against the goalkeeper. A bit of luck for Arsenal, but it was a great corner regardless. And the second goal would come a few minutes later in the 90th minute, but it would not come from Arsenal. Wolves had some extended possession, passed it around the top of the box. Matheus Mane sent in a ball that was heading towards the far post, but Tolu Arokadare was standing in between. So Mane sent in this I don't know if it was a chip, pass, shot, hybrid, but it was heading towards the far post. That's where the Arsenal keeper David Raya was heading, and Arokadare was able to redirect it with his head and tie the game up. And that was right at the start of injury time. And then Arsenal, they're going to look for their chance. And honestly, the first real chance for them to strike back, Bukayo Saka created a little bit of space on that right side. He crossed it on his left foot. It was a really good cross. At first, I thought it was headed by Gabi Jesus. He missed the ball. The defender who was on him, Yerson Mosquera, well, he really couldn't control it. It came off his face, and it was Wolves' second own goal of the night. Really unlucky for the defender. The final in this one was Arsenal 2, Wolves 1. I actually had to seriously contemplate what I thought about this Arsenal game. Now, I was unable to watch this game live. I had something to do. I had to go back and rewatch it. But I was aware of Twitter and the internet's reactions to the game as it was happening live. I was receiving text messages. And Arsenal received heavy criticism for barely getting past the worst team in the Premier League and a team that's on pace to be the worst team ever. And I actually don't know if all the criticism is completely justified. Arsenal did create several chances, and I do feel like they were unlucky to only be up 1-0 heading into injury time. I know people will say, okay, well, good teams put the ball in the back of the net, but for majority of the game, I did feel like Arsenal played like a good team. Sometimes the ball just bounces in weird ways. I mean, hell, you can make an argument when Arsenal scored, the ball bounced in a weird way. They scored when they didn't deserve to, and they didn't score when it felt like they did deserve to. Now, they did let Wolves back into the game, and that's a problem. That's not going to be sustainable if you're going to make a title challenge this year. And we credit Wolves. These guys have had nothing go their way this season, and they just kept on fighting. They tried to take the points from Arsenal, and I definitely think those guys can hang their heads high after this game. But it's like I say, a win is a win is a win. Arsenal will take the 3 points. Then they have the midweek off for the first time in forever. They travel to Everton to keep this title charge going. And obviously with the win, they stay top of the league, and with the loss, we'll stay bottom of the league. The games on Saturday that I left off mentioning, Chelsea started off Saturday with a 2-0 victory over Everton. Cole Palmer, in his return, got his name on the score sheet with a goal, and then really debated on talking about that game, but kind of left it out. I don't know why. No, I do know why. I only have a certain amount of games to talk about each week, and that one was on the chopping block. And then the other Saturday game, Burnley hosted Fulham. It was a bit back and forth, but Fulham would end up pulling away 3-2. As Burnley have a nasty losing streak going in the Premier League. But we're going to start off Sunday with the team chasing Arsenal in the title fight, and that's Manchester City. The Citizens were traveling to London themselves as they went to face a Crystal Palace team coming off a Conference League win. Manchester City is coming off a win for themselves, too. I can't forget about that. It was a pretty big one at Real Madrid. Palace have been a thorn in City's side the last few years, so I was excited for this one. A rematch of last year's FA Cup final where Palace did pick up a victory. A game with two great center forwards leading the line, Erling Haaland for City and Jean-Philippe Mateta for Palace. Palace were the much better team in the opening 20 minutes of the game. Several chances for them. One in particular where Yeremy Pino was in on goal. Ismail Sarr also had a few chances where I believe he could have done much better. Sarr then got another chance in the 33rd minute. A wonderful pass from Adam Morton down the right. He chipped it over Gianluigi Donnarumma, but the shot was just a little too far left and missed the goal entirely. And well, after being the better team for the opening part of the game, Palace should have been the opening scoring, right? Should have been the team that scored first, right? No. Mateus Nunes found himself with some space on the right side after Bernardo Silva kind of was just attracted his defender. It was 2-on-2. Silva did the right thing. It gave Nunes some space. His cross was nice. It then ended up in the direction of Erling Haaland, who Haaland was just not marked tight enough from American Chris Richards, and Haaland does what Haaland does, and he scored. You give him space for a header, he's going to score that. And that's how it went to halftime. City was leading coming out in the second half. Again, it would be Palace playing better. 50th minute, Adam Morton sent in a shot that beat Donnarumma but hit the outside of his post. And again, all the better play for Palace would be for nothing. In the 69th minute, Ryan Cherky dribbled the ball well through the center of the midfield. He then found Phil Foden at the top of the box. In the last 2 weeks, Foden has been like Steph Curry from distance. His shot from outside the box beats Dean Henderson to his left. The City doubles their lead. After the goal, Palace would have more chances of both Sarr and Eddie Nketiah. Got shots off, but Donnarumma made strong saves both times. In the 87th minute, Palace had a lot of players forward trying to find the goal. The two Palace players at the back, the guys, last line of defense, kind of made a mess of it. Savinho, the City sub, capitalizes on their mistake, runs right through them, has a one-on-one with Dean Henderson, tries to dribble it around the goalkeeper. Henderson fouled Savinho. Since it was in the box, he was only given a yellow card. City were rewarded a penalty. And Erling Haaland stepped up to take the penalty, and it really just feels like he's never going to miss that. He scores to make it 3. Final in this one, Crystal Palace 0, Manchester City 3. Okay, I'm really not trying to sound like a City hater. Because I feel like people who criticize a team who wins by 3 goals, that's just, they're being a hater. But I watched this game. I watched the City Palace game, and I do not think City were the better team. Like, literally, Palace had chance after chance after chance. And I don't know if it was just struggles with their finishing. Fantastic saves by Gianluigi Donnarumma. But Palace, for the life of them, could not get anything in the back of the net. And when people talk about title-winning teams winning ugly, maybe this is one of those times. Even if a score sheet, resembles a strong victory, I don't know. It was a weird game. And a lot of it has to do with the form that Erling Haaland and Phil Foden are in, because when you got two guys like that, it kind of doesn't matter how the rest of the team plays. Haaland is scoring goals at an insane rate, and it feels like if you give him half a chance, a little bit of space, he will score. And Phil Foden shooting from outside the box in the last few weeks has just been out of this world. I mean, his goals in the last weeks would make a great highlight compilation for a lot of players. And, I'm not the biggest XG supporter. I think there's flaws in judging by a team. That judging a team by that metric isn't great. But Palace led that in this game. And if you're City, you do need to worry about the classic law of averages. Eventually, if you're letting teams have chances like that, it will catch up to you. But whatever, this win is a win. They won. They got the 3 points. They're second in the league. They're chasing Arsenal. And honestly, Palace, they're fifth. And I wonder if they need to be doing more shooting drills, because there was a game in the Europa League not too long ago against Strasbourg where it just felt like they could not get the ball in the back of the net. I don't know. They need to figure that out. Keeping Sunday moving in our morning over here in the States. Next up, we had the "we sacked Ange Postecoglou in the last year" derby between Nottingham Forest and Tottenham. Nottingham Forest nearly opened up the scoring in the first 4 minutes, getting this game going. Right back, Nicola Savona. Nice overlap, hit a cross. Ibrahim Sangare was crashing the box to speed. His header on the cross struck the post in the melee after. Nico Williams also got a chance that was parried wide by Tottenham keeper Guillermo Vicario. It was all Forest early on, but it was a Tottenham mistake that opened the scoring. Vicario was playing it out of the back for Spurs, passed it to Archie Gray, who's then dispossessed by Sangare. But I will say Vicario set Gray up for failure. Sangare's then in on goal. Kind of took a poor touch, but he barely got the pass off to Callum Hudson-Odoi, who's then able to just tap it in for a wide open net. Forest have a 1-0 lead. Gray nearly made up for it in the 33rd minute as a fine strike by him was kept out by Forest goalkeeper Jean Victor. Forest would then be the better team in the latter part of the first half, but the game would go into halftime 1-0. Coming out in the second half, Forest would get their deserved second goal. Hudson-Odoi in the left wing creates some space, goes to send in a cross. The cross had just a little too much of it, and it missed any players, but it actually found the back post. I thought it was going to go out. Vicario, the Tottenham keeper, he should have done better to keep that out. Really just left his line in the wrong spot. Forest would then just keep continuing pressing the Tottenham goal, peppering shots. Igor Jesus, Amari Hutchinson, these shots were just outside the goal. And then in the 79th minute, Sangare for Forest hit a banger. Goal of Zoe, if you will, best of the weekend. Coming down from the top of the box, about 21 yards out, hits it with the outside of his boot. Trivella, as the kids call it. And it was just a fantastic all-around goal. Well-deserved. He had himself a game. Good holiday present for the Forest fans as he's soon leaving for the African Cup of Nations. Final in this one, Nottingham Forest 3, Tottenham Hotspur 0. You're not going to see a match between two teams in the middle of the Premier League table as one-sided as that. Tottenham were absolutely dominated by Forest. I watched this game and I looked at my notes and I had nothing positive for Tottenham in the second half. And honestly, my notes in the first half, it was only a halfway decent chance for Gray. I mean, for a team that started the beginning of the season positively, it really feels like Tottenham are backsliding here. I mean, they recently had the 4-1 loss to Arsenal, and that felt really bad, but this game was even worse. I mean, you can make excuses losing to Arsenal. Eze's a great player, whatever. Enough about Arsenal. Tottenham, good Lord, that was awful. The goalkeeper, Vicario, he had himself a game to forget. You feel bad for keepers. You never want to beat up keepers. They're the last line of defense. And, they've got games where they just want it to end. But, oh my God, those first two goals probably shouldn't have been goals. And a lot of the blame does sit on him. And, he even had to make great saves. But that's not what anyone's going to remember. They're only going to remember the two chances he really gave Forest. And, you gotta give your flowers to Forest. I think this signing of Sean Dyche turned out to be a correct decision. I think this team has started to find themselves again, attacking-wise. They look head and shoulders above where they were 3 months ago. And that soccer they played against Tottenham was just free-flowing, pressing, wonderful, attacking. It was a nice sight. And with the win, they're up into 16th now, while Spurs are kind of sitting poorly in 11th place. Okay, so coming in a little bit after, So I recorded a lot of these parts. I knew it was going to come out today on Thursday, but I recorded a lot of these parts earlier in the weekend, and there was a bit of an issue on everything after the Nottingham Forest Tottenham game. So I am going to kind of speed through everything. The only thing that kind of survived, like at least where I had like an extensive amount of notes that was worth it, is I'm going to talk about the Man United game that played on Monday. But personally, I was hoping to touch on the Aston Villa, West Ham, Sunderland, Newcastle. So I'll kind of just freestyle those. I'm not gonna be able to get like any sort of like clip for YouTube or TikTok from them, but definitely gonna talk about the games regardless. First off, mentioning Brentford Leeds. I was not really planning on talking about this game, but it finished a pretty just average 1-1 draw. Jordan Henderson opened the scoring for Brentford in the 70th minute. Dominic Calvert-Lewin followed up in the 82nd minute. First game, Sunderland versus Newcastle. It's one of the better rivalries in English football. Unfortunately, it just feels like in the last 10 to 15 years, we can't get both of these teams in the top division at the same time. This was the first time they've played one. I think it's called the Ware Tyne Derby. I don't think I've ever said that out loud. Like, I knew that's what it was called, but again, I don't think I've said it out loud. But it was the first match in like 23 months, nearly 2 years. It went 1-0 to Sunderland. They're keeping their just really impressive season going. It was a Nick Voltamata own goal right at the beginning of the second half. And yeah, no, just an incredibly impressive start for Sunderland throughout the start of the season. I mean, right now in the table, they are sitting at 26 points. So it is 8th place. But Palace, United, and Liverpool, the three teams above them, are sitting on the same amount of points. And they're doing a lot better than their northern contemporaries in Newcastle, who, one team where I've said they look like a better team in Europe than they do in England, because through 16 games, Newcastle's got 6 wins, 4 draws, and 6 losses. In my opinion, they've been, the 4th or 5th best team in England over the last 3 to 4 years, and they're going to have European expectations. So domestically, they really need to turn it around. Sunderland, they're doing well. They could score a little more goals. They're sneaking out wins. I mean, I don't think scoring's been that high. Only one team's averaging more than 2 goals a game, which is kind of crazy, actually. How sort of, I guess, low scoring. I mean, I'm looking at this table right now. Oh, that's strange. Actually, I looked at some recent years. I stopped and started doing some snooping around, and no, scoring actually had a boost like 2 years ago, and it's kind of back to like where it was like 5 years ago. There's about 2.86 goals a game, but I was just looking at the table right now, and I'm like, okay, Sunderland 19 goals in 16 games, Everton 18 goals in 16 games, but these teams are sitting in the top half of the table. City is averaging over 2 goals a game. They got 38. Arsenal and Man United aren't that far away at 30. But no, it's pretty average. 2.86 isn't unheard of. I think there was a spike in the last 2 or 3 years. But yeah, great result for Sunderland. The other game is Aston Villa picking up another victory. 9 wins in a row. I mean, they're just playing so well. They're literally right there within 3 points. I mean, there's a big gap. It's Arsenal, City, Villa, and then there's a 5-point gap to like the Chelseas of the world. That's a decent gap. And they went down right away to West Ham. They tied it up in the 10th minute. West Ham retook the lead, and then a Morgan Rogers double in the second half made it 3-2 to Aston Villa. Just a good performance. I mean, these guys, and they're so deep. I do think, you've got, Jadon Sancho didn't even play on the bench. Evan Gesson did well in their Europa League matchup on Thursday. He didn't have to come in, which means he's going to get an extended period of rest. Emiliano Buendia, Daniel Malin, Lucas Digne, those are the guys that came off the bench. That's better than, I'd say maybe all but 4 or 5 teams. I kind of think, I was talking to someone, we need to throw this top 6 notion out the window. Arsenal, City, and I'll say Chelsea in the last 4 to 5 years, and Liverpool, of course, have played at the level required. But Tottenham and Man United, I'd replace them with Villa and Newcastle in the last few years. I mean, Villa's run to the quarterfinals, Champions League last year, probably gave PSG the biggest fits of anyone. It was really impressive. And then the final game of the Premier League weekend was Manchester United hosting Bournemouth. Crazy game. So I was watching it. It was on a Monday. Ahmad opens up the scoring in the 13th minute. Bournemouth tied it up for halftime. Antoine Semenyo, 40th minute. Casemiro scores for halftime. So I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, Man United just probably got this one in the bag. They probably win the game. Life. I had to walk away for 20 minutes after halftime. So I came back to the game around the 65th minute. I turned television back on, and Bournemouth was up 3-2. In the time that I'd walked away, Evan Nilsson scored a goal in the 46th minute, and Marcus Tavernier scored in the 52nd minute. So just like that, Man United are chasing in this game, where I thought they'd been the much better team in the first half. So then they're pushing, and you're like, okay, the goal is going to come. 77th minute, it was a bit of a iffy handball. I know a lot of people were complaining about it, but it's like, whatever. I could see the call. So, don't hit the ball with your hand. Bruno Fernandes then hit an absolute peach of a free kick. And Man United, give them credit, we're still applying the pressure. 79th minute, Mateus Cunha doubled the lead, just doubled the scoring in that short period. Man United go up 4-3 on Bournemouth. And then in the 84th minute, Junior Krupi tied the game up for Bournemouth. Final on this one was Manchester United 4, Bournemouth 4. In terms of entertainment, that was as about as entertaining as a game that I've seen in God knows how long. I mean, at multiple points, I thought both teams were going to win the game. Man United, when they went up early. Bournemouth, when they went up in the second half. And then in the 79th minute, when Cunha scored that goal to make it 4-3, I really thought United were going to put this game away, because the way they came out after they went down 3-2, they settled the game down. They made correct substitutions, in my opinion. They got the goals, and they were, I don't know, it was so strange. Like, it really was. That's how strange this game was. And that's kind of sometimes where I feel like I'm struggling to figure out Man United, because I thought they showed a lot of grit to take back the lead. And when they got the fourth goal, I was like, okay, they want to win it. They were still playing positively. It's not like they sat back and invited Bournemouth into the game. They were still playing. Honestly, it felt like they were searching for that fifth goal. And then, boom, in the blink of an eye, Krupi scores, Bournemouth ties the game up. I think one consensus was maybe Manchester United need a little more help in the defensive midfield world, because obviously defensively there were issues. You get 4 goals at home, like that shouldn't be the case. You're Manchester United. But I don't know. This game just left me confused, because I saw a team that showed heart, showed effort, were strong attacking, but then you would just shake your head and be like, what the hell are they doing defensively? I mean, 4-4, that's an insane scoreline. I don't know. I didn't know what to take from this goddamn game. Also, I'll mention their spots on the table. United are 6th. I mean, I do think this is a better United side. I think Amorim's system, while still flawed, it's showing improvement, really. Bournemouth, they're a fun team. They're 13th. They're kind of one of those, I'll call it mid-table hell. Not hell, mid-table purgatory. They're never, I don't really strike Bournemouth to qualify for a European fixture, but I don't think they're in any risk of relegation. And the one thing also that I will say that I sorry about is I kind of had to put the other leagues towards the back of this podcast in regards to, I also lost some information I had regarding games in Bundesliga and La Liga that I talked about. So I'm going to run through the rest of the leagues in Europe just real quickly before I get to the end. In a league where goals really aren't that common. And I'm trying to look. Okay, I missed the Friday game. 10 games in La Liga. We'll talk about the games of the bigger teams. Lazio traveled to Parma, picked up a 1-0 victory. Atalanta kept their winning streak from the Champions League going, a 2-1 victory over Cagliari. AC Milan with a 2-2 draw versus Sassuolo. Disappointing by them. Napoli also having a disappointing weekend, traveling to Udinese and losing 1-0. Inter Milan traveling to Genoa and picking up a 2-1 victory. Juventus traveling to Bologna and picking up a 1-0 victory. And then on Monday, to wrap it up in the Italian league, Roma defeated the newcomers Como 1-0. We took a look at this table. Inter are first. They've kind of fought back. It's actually as good of a title fight as any league that you want to pay attention to. Inter are first, 33 points. Milan are second, 32 points. Napoli are third, 31 points. Roma are fourth, 30 points. 4 points behind them is Juventus. Though I don't think, this isn't your dad's Juventus. This isn't Juventus 2015, because Juventus 2015 would be running away with it in this league. Roma's stats are kind of insane. They've played 15 games. They've scored 16 goals, and they've only given up 8. I don't even know what, it's the Italian league. Atalanta, disappointingly, down in 12th. One of those teams playing better in Europe than they are domestically. And then Verona, GS Verona, Pisa, and Fiorentina. I talked about this in an earlier podcast a few weeks ago. Kind of forgot about this, how poorly Fiorentina started. 0 wins, 6 draws, and 9 losses. That's bad. That's not good. We head over to La Liga, where there's a decent title fight. I mean, there's always going to be a decent title fight in La Liga, don't get me wrong. So many good teams in this league. This is one, I'm going to talk about them all. You basically could talk about every game. I mean, Girona, 2-1 victory at Real Sociedad on Friday. Coming in Saturday, Atletico pick up a 2-1 victory over Valencia. Barcelona, 2-0 victory over Osasuna. Getting to Sunday, Sevilla with a 4-0 victory over Real Oviedo. Villarreal Levante match was postponed. I actually don't know why. And then Real Madrid with kind of a tough 2-1 victory over Alaves. If you look at this table in Spain, it is a little weird because Barcelona are first. They got 43 points after 17 games played. Real Madrid are 4 points behind them. But Villarreal, if they win their 2 games in hand, I know I talked about this earlier, they would in theory jump Real Madrid and be right behind Barcelona. Atletico are a little bit of ways away in 4th. And then, there's a little bit of a gap between the likes of Espanyol, Real Betis. But they're the ones fighting for those last couple, European spots. Potentially 5th place. I think 5th place could go to Spain, but I actually think it's Germany that are sitting in that extra 5th place qualification. And real quick for all of you that don't know, the top two countries that perform in Europe, like their clubs, so like England, English clubs, Spanish clubs, Italian clubs. Whoever clubs play the best, they get an extra spot for the Champions League. So Spain's gotten it before, but I don't know if this will be the year. Sevilla down in 9th, and then 3 teams relegated. Girona, who were just in the Champions League last year, staying in 18th. Real Oviedo in 19th, and Levante in 20th. Valencia and Real Sociedad actually not really far out of that relegation spot. That kind of last relegation spot to about 9th place is actually pretty tight. And then move over to German Bundesliga. Germany, pull up that table, pull up those scores. Going back to last Friday, the 12th, start out with Union Berlin, 3-1 victory over Leipzig. And then Bayer Leverkusen, 2-0 victory over Cologne. Dortmund, pretty poor result, traveling to Freiburg and only picking up a 1-1 draw. Bayern Munich at home. I saw this, and I was going to talk about it. And this is one of the games we lost to. They went up. 29th minute, Leonard Carl, the young kid who's just on fire. 29th minute, Mainz, Kasper Podolski, Lee Jae-sung took a lead in the 67th minute, and then Harry Kane in the 87th minute put in a penalty to put it away. They may stay undefeated in the Bundesliga, but not a great result. But, I mean, they're going to run away with this league. They're 9 points ahead of Leipzig and Dortmund 14 games into the season. They have a plus 40 goal differential. That's freaking ridiculous. 51. They're averaging between 3 or 4 goals scored a game. They play 14 games, and 14 times 4 is 56. They're at 51. That's freaking ridiculous. It's really 3.5 actually. Quick maths. Majority of the league has a negative goal differential, but Leipzig, Dortmund, and Leverkusen, to probably no one's surprise, are taking up the rest of the European spots. Again, I think it's Germany that has the 5th. Or that one of those extra spots, so it would be Hoffenheim in theory. Mainz and Heidenheim are sitting in the relegation spots with St. Pauli just a touch ahead of them. Last but certainly not least, in the French league, PSG had to pull off a tough 3-2 victory over Metz. Strasbourg drew Lorient. Marseille defeated Monaco 1-0. Lyon picked up a victory. And that table is actually Lens, who defeated Nice 2-0, are top of the league, 1 point ahead of PSG, with Marseille and Lille not far behind them. Lyon a little bit behind with Rennes in 5th. But yeah, that's crazy. Nantes and Metz, Auxerre sitting in the relegation spots. But yeah, PSG not top of the league. I mean, who'd have thunk it? Marseille, good, but inconsistent. They've outscored them. I mean, the same goal differential. Lille has always been tricky. And then Lens, who made a Champions League push a couple years ago. I think they defeated Arsenal at home. They're top of the league. That's crazy. So yeah, we're sitting at the 80-minute mark, and that'll be it for this episode. Again, this is Talk Soccer to Me on all social media platforms. Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Discord, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. Again, apologies on, a lack of coverage on some of the later games on the weekend. It's a bit of a technical issue, and we just kind of had to roll through the other leagues. But still plenty of games to talk about. We'll be back next week. There was some good midweek. There was a Conference League. There was Carabao Cup, which is the League Cup in England. Spanish Cup, I believe. And then a full weekend slate of games. So, see you in a week. By then, it'll be right before Santa Claus coming around for Christmas. So, if you made it this far, thank you. I love you. Have a good one.